The UK says importers are making deliberate errors on forms to avoid Brexit border charges. We're going to read into this more from The Guardian, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from The Guardian with the headline that the UK says importers are making deliberate errors on forms to avoid Brexit border charges. The new checks for plants and animal goods from the EU came into force on the 30th of April. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. Now, I have to say again, like whenever we talk about the problems of Brexit, it's just the problems just keep on piling up and they're just not going away in any way, shape or form. And I think I heard a quotation that kind of really summed up Brexit, is that the only way Brexit will ever go away is if we actually rejoin the European Union. The talk of Brexit will never stop ending in any way, shape or form, excuse me. And this here is a sign of just how much people don't want to spend on these charges. You know, why do we have this red tape on ourselves? Well, the whole point of us leaving the EU, leaving the single market, leaving Europe as such, as people like to call it, was that we would have control of our borders, sovereignty, take back control, you know, all that rhetoric that we hear. And yet we find ourselves struggling, and we find ourselves £50 billion less in the treasury than we have before. Why is this happening? Well, the reason is because we've imposed sanctions on ourselves. We don't have the same luxuries that we have before. And as someone said it, another person has said it, it's like having a gym membership, but you leave the gym, and then you think you can walk into the gym without a gym membership, and you're told no, and you throw a strop about it. 'Cause that's kind of what Brexiteers are like. They're throwing strops about how they used to have things that they didn't have before. Well, it's like, well, that's because we left the EU. That's why. So, just saying. But this obviously is not still going to go away. But deliberate errors here. Now, this obviously is not. You should not be making deliberate errors. Any way, shape, or form. You should be doing it properly, like everybody else. But is there any justification for them to do this? Is there some kind of way of justifiably saying they should be allowed to deliberately make errors? Because when you think about it, it's not really their fault that we have these issues. It's because of the government's decision on the kind of Brexit deal that we got. And I do say kind of Brexit deal because I think that things would not have been as bad if we went with Theresa May's deal, where we would have still been within the single market and customs union. Perhaps if we had gotten that deal, perhaps things would not be as catastrophe as they are now. But it's always easy to say within hindsight, given what the situation that is in. But many people will obviously trying to try to cover up the damage that Brexit is doing, such as the war in Ukraine, the COVID pandemic, which, yes, indeed, they had their impacts on our global economy too. And I would be lying if I said they didn't have an impact on them. But to ignore the white elephant in the room is just folly, guys. It really, really is. So let's have a read and a gander, shall we say, into these deliberate errors that importers are doing. So the government has accused businesses of importing goods from the EU of making deliberate and criminal errors on key documentation in a bid to avoid the new Brexit border charges. Ooh. In a notice sent out to traders this week, the government said it had been made aware of some traders and logistic companies were repeatedly filling out forms incorrectly and vowed to crack down on the behaviour. It comes just weeks after the government brought in new checks for plants and animal goods coming into the UK from the EU. The new rules, which took effect on the 30th of April, require certain products to be checked at the border posts across the country, with importers charged at various rates depending on the type of products that they bring in. However, the government has said that some businesses are failing to adhere to the rules and are making continuous or deliberate errors, seemingly to avoid the checks and additional import cost. And the thing is, how much, if they are doing this on purpose, how much of a follow-up on this? Because these are, as they put, quote-unquote, criminal errors as well. See, how much of a follow-up are we doing on this? The notice said deliberate declarations on forms were a criminal offence, and port health authorities would be actively looking for such behaviour and taking actions if evidence is found. So under the new border rules, products are categorised as low, medium or high risk. Low risk products require no checks at all. Medium risk products receive some checks, and high risk goods even more. The checks can take several hours and are subject to a number of delays, which can threaten the shelf life of some perishable products or mean missing customers' delivery times. Yeah, this is a factor. Obviously, if there's one thing that people don't like is their product being delayed or stalled in any way, shape, or form. And obviously, if we are doing travel arrangements, obviously now between the UK and EU and back and forth and vice versa, that delivery time is going to expand. So it's obviously, so who's end up going to pay in that cost? It's going to be you, the consumer, as always. Yeah, nobody wants to pay more for something that they can get cheaper elsewhere. The notice set out by the Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, DEFRA, said that some companies were regularly declaring goods as low risk when they were medium, and while high risk products were put down as medium, there was also a problem with importers not including export health certificates with meat and dairy products and phytosanitary certificates for plants. Now, DEFRA added that he was also aware of importers trying to include multiple export health certificates on common health entry documents, when regulations state that there should be only one. Firms could save money by doing this, as importers pay up to £145 for each entry document. Wow. Multiple health certificates. And it's costing £145 each. That's just ridiculous, guys. Ridiculous. In April, The Guardian reported on widespread criticism from the European holders about the lack of clarity over the government's charging system, complaining that it could increase transport costs by up to 60%. And since the checks came in at the end of April, there have been beset by problems due to repeated failures of the IT system and other issues. Yeah, we've heard many times about the IT systems having so many issues. Last month, The Guardian also reported that lorries carrying perishable goods were held up to 20 hours at a government-run Severton border post in Ashford, Kent, after outages caused one of the main IT systems to fail. Yeah, we covered the story of one, I believe it was one Italian holder who was held up. There was one Italian holder who was held up, I believe it was an Italian driver, and he was held up for 50 hours. And when he was taken to that haulage, he obviously did not have. Now, I quite remember this vaguely. Like, they had nothing there at the site. They took the keys away from him, and he had to walk like half a mile or something. He had to walk quite a fair bit to a gas station just to get food, and even further to get to a McDonald's just to get some like proper food and whatnot. And he was told, and then when his checks finally passed, he was told he had to get out of the lorry area at 3 a.m. in the morning, even though there was nowhere for him to park, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And it was like, well, he's tired, he's sleeping, he's tired, like it's the middle of the night, and you're telling him to basically shoot right in the middle of the night. Like, it's, yeah, I mean, it's just there's a complete lack of humanity in that regard. But in terms of this, obviously, like, it's a lot of fuffle, a lot of waffle, and a lot of unnecessary paperwork. But it's paperwork that, unfortunately, that the deal that we signed with, the deal that Boris Johnson signed with, this is what the consequences of it is. Now, it's always easy to say in hindsight with this and that, but this is what we've got to deal with. But I really do believe that a Labour government will try to mitigate these issues as much as they possibly can. Now, they've already stated, Labour, that they're not going back into the single market and customs union. I know some people just wholeheartedly do not believe them, but yet they're willing to believe Nigel Farage's lies, for example. But, Nigel Farage said that Brexit would be the greatest thing that ever happened to us. Still waiting for the benefits that Jacob Rees-Mogg said, but he said we've got to wait another, what's it been, 2020, since we've still got another 50 years or so before they start seeing the benefits of the deals come through as well. I mean, like, how many more Brexit issues do you need to see before your eyes start open and realise that perhaps this isn't working? There's a lot of misinformation about Brexit. There really is, guys. It's harming us. And again, this is people who are not following the rules and are making deliberate errors and just to try and dodge certain charges, certain checks, so they can get to A to B. This doesn't need to happen. I do think that there can be necessary changes that can make it easier. That can make it easier for them. Now, how the Labour government will do that, obviously, I'm not 100% sure. But I do think that the review that's coming up in a few years' time, I do think Labour will look to try to ease some of the pressure, ease some of the paperwork, and try to realign with the EU on certain aspects to help mitigate some of these costs. But it's going to get worse before it gets better, by the way. This isn't the worst of Brexit. We still haven't hit the worst points. There are still more things to come down the road. So if anybody thinks we're going to be done talking about Brexit, no, we're not going to be done talking about Brexit. More is coming, and you better be ready for it. The question is what our Labour government's going to do, if we're expecting one anyway, how they're going to cope with it. But what do you guys think? What do you guys make of these importers making deliberate errors on forms? Do you think there's do you think it's justifiable? Do you think that it's understandable? Or do you think they should not be doing this at all? And do you think it should be worth the risks for them doing it? Let me know your thoughts about this and the more, and about the checks, and the continuous changes of our checks in the comment section down below. Now, if you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope to catch you all very, very soon.